Hey everyone, if you're paying close attention to Tucker Carlson's interview with Joe Kent, this reference might have caught your attention.
So a country based on lies, like a family based on lies, like an individual life based on lies, cannot succeed. In fact, it's hellish, as all of us have experienced in our lying. And so the only way out of this is to stop lying, is to tell the truth now, probably 63 years after we should have started telling the truth.
I'm Rich Lowry of National Review, and what happened 63 years ago? Well, that's a reference to the assassination of JFK, and Tucker is suggesting there, he said it explicitly elsewhere, that the cover-up of the real plot to kill JFK is a foundational lie of the American state. This is a major theme of Candace Owens as well. She likes comparing Erica Kirk to LBJ. Take a look.
Because she loved Charlie. She loved him like Lyndon Baines Johnson loved JFK. No time to grieve. She needed to be sworn in as the new leader before his body was even cold. In case you didn't know this, LBJ was actually a crypto Jew, as they term it, a Jewish gangster. Crypto Jew, to be sure. More on that later.
I have to say, LBJ is probably one of the least likely crypto Jews in American history, but let's put that aside. Here's Candace going further into the assassination with Piers Morgan.
We have to grow up. We can't keep pretending Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK.
Fine.
We can't keep doing that.
That is your opinion.
No, that's a fact.
No, it's not a fact.
It's a fact.
It's not a fact.
It's a fact.
The whole reason there are still conspiracy theories about JFK's assassination is none of this is a fact. You are floating it as your theory.
Because the feds are never going to admit to their own crimes. That is the reason we're still discussing it.
That may be the case, but you can't prove that.
Now, Tucker Carlson says that the CIA, including the former director Alan Dulles, assassinated JFK or behind the assassination. Candace Owens says it was the Jews. These would seem to be two theories in tension with one another, but not if you think the CIA is being run by the Jews. Then it all comes together into a single unified theory. Now, look, this is something that a lot of Americans believe, that we don't really know the truth about the JFK assassination and something is being covered up. But this is clearly a foundational myth of the conspiratorial right. Now, it used to be that the left promoted JFK conspiracy theories, assassination conspiracy theories. Now it's the right. This is a classic instance of the horseshoe theory, where the left and the right on the extremes come together, and both are motivated here by an extreme discontent and disaffection for the United States of America and suspicion of the people who have constituted its government. So what I want to do today, this is going to be a little longer than the usual videos you're used to seeing from me here, explain why Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK, how that's clear in the evidence, and why he acted alone. Also clear in the evidence. So I'm going to break this video up into several parts. I'm going to be a little pretentious. I'm going to call them chapters, but that's how it's going to go down. And if you bear with me here, I think you're going to learn some things, and I think I make a pretty persuasive case, but we'll see. You're the judge of that, right? So chapter 1, yes, Lee Harvey Oswald shot JFK. So several things here. There are 3 shots that day that all came from the Texas School Book Depository. Almost all the witnesses said they heard shots from that direction. You have multiple witnesses saying they saw a man with a rifle on the 6th floor of the depository. You had employees of the depository saying they saw cement loosened coming down from the ceiling after these shots. You have one witness saying he actually heard the bolt action rifle and shell casings falling on the floor. This is why the police almost instantaneously had an accurate description of the shooter, and an officer shows up at the depository, actually sees Oswald, lets him go when a supervisor tells him that Oswald works there. Now, it's said that Oswald didn't have time to get off the shots. This is wrong. It's based on an inaccurate analysis of the Zapruder tape. The timing of these shots have been duplicated time and again. We're told that Oswald was a poor shot. No, actually, he was a pretty good shot when he was in the Marine Corps and actually practiced once he procured this rifle. We've told it's really far away, the shot, very difficult. No, actually, the final shot, the third one that killed JFK, was from 88 yards. That's considerably closer than Thomas Crook's was to Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. We're told that the rifle was inaccurate. No, actually, tests afterwards determined it was quite accurate as the M14 used by the military at the time. Then there's the so-called magic bullet. It goes through Kennedy's neck, then into the chest of Governor Conley. We're told that there's no way this possibly could happen. No, what would have really been a magic bullet if it went through the soft tissue of JFK and then disappeared. It had to go somewhere. It goes into Conley. Multiple tests have confirmed that this makes sense. Then there's the infamous grassy knoll. This is supposedly where the real killer was or an additional shooter was. No, this makes no sense. The grassy knoll was in front of the motorcade, a very bad spot to try to shoot at Kennedy from because the security, the cops would see someone on the grassy knoll, whereas Oswald is behind the motorcade. No additional bullets have been found lodged in a car or anywhere else. No casings on the grassy knoll. This is all made up. And the two entrance wounds of the shots that hit JFK are indeed from behind. The bottom line is that Lee Harvey Oswald was caught dead to rights. The murder weapon was his, found where he worked and where people had seen and heard shots coming from. He was clearly a desperate man. He was the only one who fled the depository. He kills a cop when he's running from the authorities. He fights the police when they corner him in a movie theater under interrogation. He tells lie after lie, including ridiculously that he didn't own a rifle. That brings us to chapter 2, and I told you it was pretentious. We're even using Roman numerals for the chapter numbers, people. Chapter 2, yes, Oswald was capable of such a thing. No one who knew Oswald was the least bit surprised that he might carry out such an act. In fact, his wife Marina assumed he was guilty as soon as she realized that the rifle wasn't in the spot in the garage where Oswald usually kept it. Oswald had a truly awful upbringing in a broken home. As a teenager, he was diagnosed with something called personality pattern disturbance. A judge ordered him to a home for troubled boys. He never fit in anywhere, whether it was the Marines or the USSR where he defected briefly. Everyone around him thought he was disturbed. When he was in the Soviet Union, he tried to kill himself. He was violent. When he was younger, he hit his mother. He beat his wife, Marina. He had at one point a plan to hijack a plane to go to Cuba. He visited Mexico City eventually and went to the Cuban and Russian embassies to try to get a visa to Cuba. When it was denied, he was sobbing uncontrollably and waving a revolver around. And prior to shooting JFK, he tried to assassinate a right-wing figure named General Edwin Walker. Once you've attempted one assassination, it's a pretty good sign you might try another, which brings us to chapter 3, the CIA didn't kill JFK. Now, even if you get conspiracy theorists to admit, okay, it was Oswald who pulled the trigger, they go to these shadowy forces that were supposedly behind Oswald, with the CIA being high on the list, as we've already heard. Now, it is true that JFK was extremely upset with the CIA after the fiasco at the Bay of Pigs. He fired the aforementioned Alan Dulles, brings in John McCone as the director, and supposedly says in private he wants to shatter the CIA into 1,000 pieces. Now, we don't know if JFK actually said that because it was in private. What we do know is that he didn't try to actually shatter the CIA into 1,000 pieces, and all the evidence suggests during the rest of his presidency he had a warm relationship with the agency. William Colby was an important CIA official at the time of the assassination, eventually became the director, and he wrote in his memoir, quote, "The fact of the matter is that the CIA could not have had a better friend and a president than John F. Kennedy. He understood the agency and used it effectively, exploiting its intellectual abilities to help him analyze a complex world and his paramilitary and covert political talents to react in a low-key way." In the mid-1990s, a CIA official undertook a long study of how the agency worked with presidents. He concluded the CIA's relationship with Kennedy was not only a distinctive improvement over the more formal relationship with Eisenhower, but would only rarely be matched in future administrations. Further noted, in the early part of this period, McCone succeeded in rebuilding the agency's relationship with Kennedy. McCone saw Kennedy frequently and the president more than any other before or since, would telephone even the lower-level agency officers for information or assistance. So we're supposed to believe that unbeknownst to everyone, during these seemingly fruitful and cooperative interactions, the CIA was really plotting to kill JFK and using Lee Harvey Oswald to do it. Remember, this is a pro-Castro Marxist and small-time left-wing agitator. Would he have felt motivated to cooperate with the agency that just recently had tried to topple his hero? And then why would the CIA trust this extremely unstable personality with the most sensitive and treacherous operation in U.S. history that, if it were exposed, would have meant the electric chair for everyone? The man who was the chief of clandestine operations for the CIA in the Western Hemisphere at the time of the assassination testified before the Congressional Committee investigating the assassination. He said, quote, Oswald was a person of a type who would never have been recruited by the agency. His personality and background completely disqualified him for clandestine work or for work as an agent to carry out the instructions of the agency. By virtue of his background and so on, he would miserably fail to meet our minimum qualifications. You know who agreed? The KGB. The guy who was the head of the KGB at the time that Oswald attempted to defect to the Soviet Union said that he was a mediocre, uninteresting, useless man, and said further, I had always respected the CIA and FBI, and we knew their work and what they were capable of. It was clear that Oswald was not an agent, couldn't be an agent for the FBI or the CIA. None of the bodies that have studied the JFK assassination, whether the Warren Commission or the Church Committee not very fond of the CIA, by the way, has found any evidence of any CIA involvement. And how would this have worked exactly? So the CIA put Oswald up to pretending to need a job and then go to the school book depository for a job? And did it put up the friend of Marina who mentioned there was a job opening there to Oswald when he was unemployed to get him to actually go and get that job? And then it somehow magically route the president's motorcade past the depository. This route was finalized about a month after Oswald got this job. And if the CIA was capable of all this, why didn't it just find some super secret sniper who could carry out this assassination and get in and out very easily, or at least try to come up with some escape plan for Oswald, right? Instead of letting him just run through the streets of Dallas and then get caught by the police and then get interrogated, where he could have spilled the beans about the whole plot. And Alan Dulles and whoever else, other Jews, secret Jews, would have been on the hook. Why did the CIA, if it's so good, let all that happen? It makes zero sense, which brings us to Chapter 4, Who was Jack Ruby? Now, the rejoinder might be, well, they didn't need an escape plan for Oswald because they had Jack Ruby to carry out a hit on Oswald. Indeed, this was a shocking event. Ruby gunning down Oswald in cold blood before the entire world. But unless Ruby faked his entire life, he was an emotionally erratic man who was genuinely distraught over the assassination of JFK. As it happened, Ruby was a good match for Oswald. Also, terrible upbringing, emotionally unstable. At one point, threatened to kill a business partner, threatened to kill himself. He was violent. Everyone around him thought he was disturbed. He didn't succeed at anything, although he was making a go of it with his strip club called the Carousel, which will figure in the story further in just a second. Now, Ruby is genuinely upset over Kennedy's assassination. He's crying over it, talking about it constantly. Some people think he's on the verge of a mental breakdown. He's the type that likes being the center of the actions, a big talker, so he begins hanging out at the police station after Oswald's arrest. He kind of knows everyone. The cops frequent his club. He's talking to everyone. He's bringing sandwiches for the police. He's not acting like a secret agent with some sort of secret agenda. Now, the day he shoots Oswald, he's at a Western Union not too far from the police station, wiring $25 for one of his strippers. The clerk recounts afterwards he didn't seem like he was in any sort of rush. And Oswald is supposed to be transferred earlier that morning. There's a delay, and then a final delay, crucial couple minutes, when Oswald wants a change of clothes. So he happens still to be there when Ruby shows up and impulsively shoots him. And Ruby says afterwards, if there'd just been 3 seconds, a 3 second delay, he would have missed Oswald. Now, that's the kind of happenstance that does not speak of an elaborate conspiracy. And in his disturbed mind, Ruby thinks he's going to be a hero. People are going to congratulate him for taking down the assassin of a president of the United States. He brags to the police afterwards. He thinks he'll just get nailed with something called murder without malice, about a 5-year sentence. Instead, he gets nailed for premeditated murder and sentenced to death. Now, in custody, he begins to lose his mind, suffers from cancer, dies about 3 years after shooting Oswald. And again, like with Oswald, this is not someone that any organization engaged in high-level plotting would want to rely on, whether it's the CIA or even the mafia. And again, like with Oswald, why would the CIA just let Ruby get caught and have years to blab? And by the way, he steadfastly maintained that he wasn't part of any plot. And when he testified before the Warren Commission, he wanted to testify with a lie detector test, and he was found to be telling the truth when he said he wasn't a part of some larger conspiracy. Now, the conspiracy theorists won't tell you any of this, won't grapple with these facts, whether it's Oliver Stone or Tucker Carlson. At the end of the day, what we're talking about is a deep indictment of American society. What kind of country are we living in if a president of the United States was assassinated by his own government, and the government of the United States since that day has covered it up? A wide-ranging conspiracy involving dozens, hundreds, thousands, perhaps, of people, both Democrats and Republicans. Every administration and president of the United States, from LBJ to Jimmy Carter to Ronald Reagan to Donald Trump. What kind of country are we if that is true? A deeply compromised and corrupt country. So these people, they're not truth tellers, and they'll distort anything and make any insinuation to try to advance the darkest view of their own country, and that's a disgrace. I'm Rich Lowry, over and out.